Hi everyone, David Watson here with 5D Video Shooter. This is my review of the V-Control UFC-1S. For anyone who spent time recording video on a DSLR, you know that focus becomes one of the most important things that you really have to pay attention to. The greatest light with the greatest lenses, small depth of field, can be lost if you don't have crisp, sharp focus. When most people start out, they don't understand why there isn't just an autofocus on DSLR cameras. Then when you start to shoot good video, not just cell phone or camcorder video, really good video, you start to understand that controlling focus and not relying on a computer to figure out what it thinks you want is really the only way to make great video. So I ordered the Manfrotto Simplest system, thinking that I would stick with Manfrotto for doing my shoulder rig and other types of handheld recording. I'll be doing a review of the Simplest system. Once I got it, I realized that holding it with two hands in the front was nice and comfortable, but the balance of the camera pretty much required keeping two hands on those handles. The problem with this is that controlling focus by taking one hand off the handles is fairly problematic. Manfrotto makes a USB controllable focus, makes a couple of them, but apparently they don't work real well. At least if the other videos that I watched can be trusted. I've watched several reviews and getting smooth focus control didn't really seem possible. It was really jumpy. The only USB controllable focus system that seemed to get fairly positive reviews was this V-Control system. And with the price being reasonable, I decided to try it out. I ordered it and found out that Aputure had released a new version. So I canceled the first order and ordered the newest one, the UFC-1S. Unfortunately, it had to come from China. Not the funnest ordering process. The shipping got screwed up. It got halfway here and then had to be sent back. I finally made it here though, and I've been able to use it on several shoots now. First time I used it, it nearly lit on fire. One of the batteries was pressed up against the edge of the compartment, and this caused a power short because the battery got so hot. I was worried that it was actually going to explode, the battery. Once I bent the wires a bit and replaced the batteries, it stopped heating up, and I haven't had the problem since. So watch out for that. So how is the functionality? It's pretty good. Like a lot of the reviewers have said, it's good but not great. Most people have said that the fastest mode on the previous model was too jumpy to do smooth focus changes. In this version, level 3 is actually smooth, the highest level. Level 2 is smooth and level 1 is unusably slow. Someone said that they just removed the old level 3 and made it level 2 and just kind of bumped it up one. Without having both, I can't really say. But I can tell you that even at the fastest speed of level 3, tracking focus with a large zoom lens can be problematic if you have to spin it a lot of times. What does that mean exactly? That means that if on my 16-35 Canon lens, pretty much any zoom on that lens is fast and smooth and works perfectly. It's fast enough to track even the fastest moving objects because it's only about a 3/4 turn to go from really close to far away. 24-70 is a bit different story. 24-55 is reasonable, but if it gets into the higher up into 55-70 where the depth of field is going to be much smaller, the amount of movement it takes to go from shallow focus to deep focus starts to go beyond a full turn and quickly goes into multiple turns. The 70-200 Canon lens, I think I counted 15 spins of the wheel to go from close to far away at 200 millimeters. But if you're only moving a few feet in focus distance, this can work out really well. Say you're doing a shoot with two people talking and you want to switch between the two of them, and it actually works perfectly. Actually, if you're shooting zoomed in from far away and you have a very shallow depth of field, it's actually more usable than the focus ring, because the focus ring moves really far with the slightest turn. But if you're tracking sports, you probably wouldn't want to do the spinny wheel. And if you watch professional sports, most of the time they keep it a wide depth of field. They keep it the aperture closed down pretty tightly. Go ahead and check. I really watch a lot of sports, and it's amazing that They rarely do shallow depth of field just because they don't want to lose that focus. So I've shot several outdoor events. It works great. I've been able to use it with the camera attached to the Pro-Am 8-foot crane that I have, with a remote monitor to see the focus peaking. With the V-Control, it works great because I have a long cable. It was a bit of touch and go for the first trials. Magic Lantern had just updated because of a firmware, or they got it working with 1.2.3, so shooting raw video was a bit buggy. Even with the latest updates, it causes some hiccups sometimes in recording, and I'm assuming that's because the USB is using some of the CPU. But it's moving in the right direction. Everything gets more stable. If you're like me and you're shooting raw though, this might give you problems, so pay attention. There are some cool features that do give you control of remote capabilities that make up for some of the shortfalls. For instance, having the ability to remotely set the ISO, the shutter speed, and the aperture. That's really helpful. And then one of the most handy features, obviously, is to be able to start and stop recording remotely. It also takes the photo mode, uses all of those things. This is very helpful when you don't want to be touching the camera for remotely adjusting those settings. So the more I use it, the more I find myself relying on it. It definitely isn't perfect, but I've tried to use the buttons for setting the remote focus points. It seemed to screw up the speed that the dial would be set at after using it, but maybe I'm just not understanding how it's supposed to work, honestly, though. I would have preferred that the settings stay the same for video mode and photo mode rather than having those focus points, because in photo mode, that's when you can actually control the ISO, the aperture, and the shutter speed. I just press the button and then roll the wheel. Even though it obviously isn't as smooth as having an aperture wheel on the lens, it's silent, other than it's changing the lens, so the lens motor is actually running. So you may pick that up if your mic is very close to your lens. Comes with a USB 24-inch cable and a leather pouch. Leather pouch looks cool, but I don't think I've even put it back in it since I got it. I always have it mounted to something so I don't have to pack it and unpack it separately. I wish they would have just made this thing out of aluminum rather than doing the leather carrying case. I know it's a better price performance than its competition, but it is plastic, and it really wouldn't survive a bad drop at all if something landed on it, especially when it's mounted to something. I would have expected version 2 would be more sturdy than the first version. It isn't. I wish it had more mounting points. Crazy that they duplicated the USB port in order to have 2 spots to plug it in and only 1 mount point. But all in all, like I said before, I'm finding that I'm relying on this more and more. Having this on the shoulder rig makes it so I can keep 2 hands on the rig and adjust the focus easily with my thumb. The remote start and stop button becomes extremely valuable as well, obviously, without having to take my hands off the wheel. I would recommend this product as long as people know its limitations. And that's my review. If you like seeing these video reviews, go to my channel for more. If you'd like to see more future videos, please subscribe. Thanks.